You're listening to episode number 28 of the Wellness Real Estate Podcast. Today's podcast was a recording I had with the founder of a company called Agriburbia, Matthew Quint Redmond, and his associate, Paul Newton. It wasn't intended to be a podcast, but we had such a great conversation, I just have to share it with you. It will inspire you to know the incredible advancements that are being made in farming that allow forward-thinking developers to intentionally design communities that have access to organic, clean, and nutritious food. I invite you to also watch the video version of this episode so you can see the amazing pictures of these plans that Quint and Paul are referring to in this episode. It's in our free community, and I'll put the link in the description below for you to join. If you're interested in learning what goes into an Agrihood development, you won't want to miss this episode. Let's grow! Welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast, where we explore a unique strategy no one is talking about that will enable you to engage more people with authentic conversations about your business more often. And it's called Wellness Real Estate. Not sure what that is or how it can help you as an agent? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. In fact, Wellness Real Estate is growing so rapidly that it is projected to be nearly $870 billion by 2027. I'm Sheila Alston, and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Healthy Home Media, where I help agents all over the country leverage this new trend in the industry to spark new conversations that will get people to listen to you and notice your brand. So if you're tired of spinning your wheels without any leads or sales to show for it, then stay tuned. I guarantee this podcast is not like any you've heard before. Welcome to the Wellness Real Estate Podcast.
No, but I'm just so excited to learn about Agriburbia because you're helping other developers create Agrihoods. So maybe, so my audience is, I kind of have two different audiences. I have one podcast that's for consumers to learn about, why an Agrihood would be a good idea. But I do have a community of agents and healthy home professionals that are just wanting to learn more about what's happening in the industry and how they can learn more about it and educate their clients. So anything you want to share, with us, kind of, to the trade. That's awesome.
No, that's okay. No, actually, it's great. I mean, it's actually good. I mean, we've been at it a long time. Mm-hmm. Did I send you the article in 2009? Did I send you a link to that? The Denver Post article?
You did, but honestly, I'm so sorry. I haven't had time to check it out yet. So I got to.
No, it's all right. It's okay. But so it's sort of a funny story, but my wife is from Pennsylvania and grew up on a farm there, and I grew up farming and ranching in Colorado, even though neither one of our parents are farmers. Really, my dad was an engineer and her father was an academic, but they lived on a farm, and I grew up farming for a living, to work my way through school and all that. Anyway, make a long story short, we were in the design business. My wife and I met in grad school. So she has a biology degree and I have a geology degree, and then we both have a master's in urban and regional planning. And then I have a master's in landscape architecture as well. Anyway, we got married and doing a lot of work and stuff. And then we hawked our 401k and put it in the spare bedroom and started the design firm. That was in 97. But it's, it's an interesting thing. We did a bunch, but because we were small and really light-footed, we didn't have weren't entrenched or whatever. People with less rigid ideas than the big home builders. So we didn't do a lot of work for the big home builders back then. Basically a guy came in to the office and he had 600 acres here in Colorado, in the north part of Colorado. And he was not a developer at all. He made money somewhere else and bought the ground. And he wanted to do a golf course. And I said, you can spit on 20 golf courses from this piece of property. You don't want to do a golf course. And then I said, where is the most valuable land per capita in the United States? And he goes, I think you're going to tell me. And I said, it's not New York. That's the most valuable land is Manhattan. But the most valuable land per capita is Sonoma and Napa. Really? And the reason is because it's a working landscape and people it's a visceral reaction to do that. And I said, you can build that. It doesn't always be grapes. It can be a lot of other things. But if you build that into it. And so he was great. I didn't have to, convince him because he wasn't 30 years in the development business and this is how we do it, 30 feet wide lots. Anyway, so We got all of that done. Beautiful 600 acres. Do you need me
Paul
to stop?
Newton is trying to join us. Is that
Oh, yeah.
somebody?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he's my partner in California.
Okay.
I just forwarded to
Okay.
him, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just
Yeah,
didn't want to
no,
let somebody in who wasn't part of our
he's
call.
no, he's part of the story or whatever, and
Yeah.
he's been with me for 25 years. So anyway, so the upshot of it is this guy let us do a whole design, including, this is really critical. This is hardcore development. This isn't, throw an apple tree in and call it Agriburbia. Like, we actually got the Metropolitan District to pay for the vineyards and orchards and everything as infrastructure. It's a really key thing. We treat agriculture as infrastructure, just like roads and water and sewer. Paul,
Wow.
She didn't know who you were, but she's in.
I'm just.
I was like, who's trying to join our meeting?
I'm just coming in to crash the meeting. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice to meet you. I'm Sheila.
Hi, Sheila. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Sheila, and she has a whole podcast and everything, but she's great because she's perfectly connected to the realtors and the initial part of the development community. That's, will be good for us in the long run. Anyway, I was just telling her how we got there. We did a whole design, and literally the day or 2 days after we got that design with 50% orchards and vineyards and all that approved, is the day that the Lehman Brothers went upside down in the 2008 downfall.
Oh.
And so the whole thing collapsed. We had 4,000 or 5,000 acres of different projects all over the country that basically just stopped, for 5 years. So, but it was good for us because, and this is really key to tell all of the folks that might hire us or that you might create this story for. During the downturn, I went into the office that day. Paul was there. He was actually physically in Colorado at that time. And I stood in the middle of the room and I said, okay, we're all farmers now. There was like 20 of us left in the office. And to everybody's credit, only one guy quit. Everybody else kind of knew they didn't have a job. They were in the development industry and they knew the gig was up or whatever. One guy quit and said, I'm done now. But everybody else kind of came into work and we paid them the best we could. But we went out and we started farming, like actually, really good specialty crops. I mean, we're agnostic, whether it's organic or biodynamic, or, I mean, there's just thousands of different, but it's all really, really good, right? Like the best food you can produce. Anyway, we went out and did that and we lost our backside, right? It was absolutely miserable. We built a bunch of farms. We did all that and we figured out why nobody wants to farm. I mean, I had farmed before and my wife grew up on a farm, but we figured out from an economic standpoint why no one wants to farm. And that was the beginning of when we decided to come up with the ag tech, with a way to introduce technology to kind of make it all work. And I can show you a little bit of that, but that's really, really key for like Alyssa, and Neil, people like that that want to do this, it's romantic to have a red tractor at the entrance, and we have lots of those, but actually producing food and everything takes a lot of technology or whatever, and there's no labor or whatever. So I can show you a little bit of that or whatever. Anyway,
okay, well,
make a long story
just
short,
to back up. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just to back up on your thought for a second. So the reason why farming is so hard is just because it's so labor intensive, and that's why nobody wants to farm.
We are still farming like we did 150 years ago. We still go out, get a big tractor, plow all the ground up, and plant seeds and hope, for the best kind of thing or whatever. And, it's sort of crazy because your windows shut themselves and your refrigerator talks to you and everything. The built environment has all of this technology, whether it's good or not. That we don't take a stand on whether it's good or not, but in the farming world, it's just sort of a practical thing that we can't farm the way we used to and expect it to work and then live in, fancy houses and all this that do all the stuff for us. So that's correct. We had to come up with a better way to farm. It's also really cool, and I'll show you, I don't know, let me just get you like the next 5 minutes through the whole story, and then I'll show you a couple of things that are really key. Anyway, so the upshot is we did that for 5 or 6 years. We learned like really what the issues were or whatever, and it was the best thing for us because now when we consult to help people, I'm going to show you one we're doing in Texas. Paul and I are literally working on it right now. We're taking a break from working on it right now, and we know what to tell them to do because we know how the farming works and how the energy works and how all that we've done it kind of thing, rather than just kind of, oh, I guess it's nice and write a bunch of frilly stuff. We believe in marketing, believe me. But the reality is the early ones that I was telling you about, they all failed because the farms didn't pay for themselves and the farms didn't have a really good economic basis for what they were doing or whatever. So anyway, that's how we started. And then once we did the project, that's the project that's, if I didn't send it to you, it's really worth a quick read because it sets the date. It was in 2009. And literally a guy from the Denver Post, he interviewed me, didn't hear from him again for 3 months. And then we were walking into the bagel shop with my 2 kids one day, and they pointed to the paper box that said, "Dad, that's you." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes,
and you're like, "Oh, how did that happen?"
Cover of the newspaper,
front page of the Post above the fold.
Wow.
And back when we still had paper, anyway. But that once that got rolling, nobody's ever asked us to do projects that don't involve food. So we have like 80 different projects that we've done, for a whole host of things, and some of them are really specialized, and some of them are more generic, or whatever. So. Paul, any other word for?
We just tried to test the metrics about how to make farming easier, simpler, more distributed, more, and more available, more local. That was just like all those things were hitting really, really hard when we were in 2009, when we were trying to put the formula together, right? And so we've been continuing to craft that answer since then.
Well, and I do think that it's because of the demand for, in the restaurant industry, everybody wants this farm to table food. Everybody's like buying organic. People want to know what's in their food.
Yes.
So it just makes sense that there would be a neighborhood. And I know that like Serenbe was the first one, right? And it's like become this model for everybody to build an organic farm that people can access right out their back door.
So just as a point of real specific, Prairie Crossing in Chicago.
Yeah.
I looked them up. They were actually the very first one to deliberately put a farm in a development.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
And then Serenbe, and then Wellessford.
Yeah.
But about that time is when we started developing it as an actual idea, how you're really going to do it. How are we going to do this en masse? How do we do it so that every subdivision has food? Like we actually count the calories now. We have precision nutrition where everybody that lives there can get a blood test and we can figure out what to grow to make you healthier. Things like that.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting.
That's why I was saying the farm to table thing is kind of cool, but we are way past that now. So this is 350 acres in Texas. The pond. I'm going to fly down there this week to show it to the town or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think I might have sent you 1 or 2 of these, but there's a couple of really key things. Is you don't see a golf course in here, but about 30 acres of this is dedicated to very high quality, very intensely grown food. Like literally and these are called, these things that are kind of green out here in the middle, they're called FarmKits. And then this is what a FarmKit is. When you actually dive in to start figuring out how you're going to develop with food and agriculture as infrastructure, you have to figure out what the new pieces are. So this is a building that we invented. You live upstairs. It's live work for farming and agriculture.
Wow.
And so you live upstairs. It's two or 3 bedroom, 2 bath. You can make it as nice as you want or as lean as you want. But the key is the ground floor drains and has fire protection. So it's commercial. So we have a dentist that's going to be on 2 acres of mint. She's going to make her own toothpaste for her clients and all these other. Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah. She'll be the most.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. So We have a STEM school version where the science teacher lives up. We're working with 3 or 4 different school districts, and the science teacher lives in it, but all the food goes into the school, and all the science that goes on, the kids get to go, the bottom floor is like a science lab while they're
That's
actually
incredible.
Yeah.
And
then,
so is this a little bit, is it regenerative a little bit, or is it
everything.
like
It actually makes more energy than it consumes. I'm going to show you the trellis in a minute, but so we basically we made a list of everything that Jeff Bezos can't fly to you.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't fly education to you. He can't fly medical help. He can't fly. There's just things that are on the ground, and they're all better on a farm. We have a occupational therapist that's going to be a chiropractor that's going to be in one of these. The chiropractor took one look and she goes, I'm cracking everybody's neck because they have inflammation. And if I could get them to come, and eat the right way, I could actually help them and actually cure them. So she's going to live upstairs and have people come. And it's interesting because, and this is like part of the commercial real estate world, those people that think of it like that, the dentist, she goes, well, people only come when they, once a year when they need their teeth cleaned or when they have a toothache. But if it was on a farm and they were helping me, with the farm, they would come every couple of weeks and they would help me and they would help me make the toothpaste. And it would be like a real community. I'm like, what do you think?
Wow.
Right? Like if you put the infrastructure there, you create community. So, so this is the trellis. So this is patented. We have 2 different patents on this, a design patent or whatever. And basically, there's as much technology as you want. So and I'll tell you a quick story about our project we had in Richmond, Virginia. But this is actually like 3-dimensional. So you can grow upwards, and you can we have 3 or 4 different sizes of the trellis, including very tall for like trees and stone crops and apples and peaches and things like that. But ultimately, this is it can be just the trellis and you can manage it in an old-fashioned way, or it can be completely automated. The drone flies up and down the aisle, takes a picture of each bay, uses micro LiDAR and hyperspectral imagery, and all that comes back to our database. And then that can actually tell the robot what to pick the next day.
And then how do you get around like monocropping so that the soil stays really rich?
It's changeable every year.
Every year, so you're changing.
Yeah, you just change up. That's what I'm saying. You can plant one bay. If you go do blood tests and somebody there needs beets, and then you figure out how many people need beets, and you go, oh, okay, well, I'll plant beets in this row this year, and then I'll plant this. And so it's completely flexible. It's like a 3D grid for growing stuff. And then as you can see, there's actually, it actually has photovoltaics on the top. So this is a new kind of photovoltaic that we're working with the guy on. It's not ready yet, but these are traditional panels, long, thin ones. It actually generates more energy than it takes to do it. And this is geothermally heated. So we use the earth's heat and we circulate that. And you could grow year round if you want. Depends on which climate. In Duluth, you're probably not going to grow year round. But that's part of the game of where you are. But you can extend the season, and you can actually make it makes the farm actually work. And now you don't have to buy an $800,000 tractor, and you don't have to do all that. So here's the really interesting thing about the technology, though. We had a really, really good, successful project in Richmond, Virginia, called Chickahominy Falls, and it won Development of the Year in Virginia a couple years ago, whatever. Anyway, it's about 400 acres, and we designed and built the farm at the front. It was a more traditional thing. Had one farm at the front rather than the FarmKits all spread around. But it was just if you talking to real estate brokers, it was so successful that on the launch day, 500 people came for the 50 houses that were available. We ended up writing. We ended up writing. I mean, this is what I'm saying. The time has come. You called me because you know that, right? We wrote people's name on a potato and we pulled it out of a gunny sack as a lottery for the 50 homes. But when I was standing there, I was showing a woman the trellis. We hadn't built it yet. And I was showing her how we can automate it because I was, like geeking out on all the technology. And she got really angry. She goes, what are you talking about? The reason I bought my lot here is because I want to get up early in the morning and go out into the field and prune and, and do that. So lesson learned, right? Like the technology's there when you need it, but if you're building the infrastructure, she told me, she goes, you need to have wine glass holders on these trellis.
Yeah.
Penny, how do you harvest? Because it looks like there's some screen or something in front of it.
Oh yeah, it's plastic and it goes up and down to hold the heat in. So when you don't need the heat, you just roll it up and it's tucked underneath the top up here.
But it protects you from bugs and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, it has netting. It has all kinds. In fact, actually, on certain things that when you have to spray even organically, you can put it down and you can, spray inside, and you have to spray like 1/100th of what you really would have to if it was just outside.
Right. Wow.
I mean, it's basically designed. Yeah.
And then, that's amazing.
Great. And then out in California, we haven't had a chance because we're still we're literally right in the middle of getting all this out. When they had all the fires last year, we have a big project in Napa, and the fires burnt everything, but the fires didn't burn all the vineyards, but the smoke damage ruined it. And if you had our trellis and you could lower the plastic, they would have saved 90% of the grape crop that year.
Wow.
And the ash was a big problem, because it would singe the leaves and do a lot of damage to the flavor of the crop and everything else. And they're like, wow, if we had this and we had a way to protect the vine in an emergency like that, to be able to protect it, like they could have saved probably, I don't know, most of the gross product that Napa Valley produced that summer. It was a total wipeout that summer. When was that? It was like 2019, 2020?
2020,
like
I think.
Yeah.
So this is one we're doing in Columbus. Same idea. You're getting the idea. So these are all farms all the way around the perimeter that do all kinds of really cool things. A veteran, the guy that owns this ground is a military veteran, super great guy or whatever. So he wanted to do a veteran training farm or whatever. And it's got the trellis in it in the FarmKit building or whatever. A daycare. Can you imagine your kids? You basically go in the entrance here and you pick up your kids and they walk out with a sack full of 10-minute-old food that was just picked for your dinner. And then you drive in to your house.
Yeah.
It's all about infrastructure.
Do they have so they'll have a CSA farm for the community and farmers markets and that kind of thing too, I'm assuming.
All of these things. You can drive, you can get on your bicycle or walk, and this one is going to have, this is a wellness center. So it'll have all kinds of stuff for you waiting. And then
can you build one of these in San Diego?
Yeah.
Sure.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing that's really important for you. You can help us. The market, the hardcore developers, of which we work for some. Luckily, most of them are a little bit, forward thinking or whatever.
Yes. But
the real hardcore money just can't figure it out yet, right? They don't understand that the market's already there for this. If we had this built in San Diego, you or your, real estate friend, you could sell this overnight, right?
Yeah.
You would just go like that.
It would probably triple in value just because everybody would want it.
Yes, right. Well, so that's what we have to figure out a way to verbally, and we need to communicate to the real development money in the world, because we're doing all these, and we have others that we can show you or whatever, and they're smaller scale, but these are all condos in here. This is actually, I don't know how familiar with current events you are, but around the country, but in Columbus, Intel, the chip maker, is building the first chip plant in this country in 20 or 30 years or whatever it is. And this is very close to that. And all of these condos are already being reserved. We haven't even broke ground on it. And all these condos are being reserved by the executives and the people that work at the chip plant. Because who doesn't want to, wake up, do this, go over, have a real high-tech job, and then come and walk around the vineyards in the evening with your kids.
Right. Well, and then look at the alternative if you want to live in a condo. It's like jam-packed suburbia with nothing except for maybe a strip mall nearby. Right. That's not even the same.
Yeah, no, So the strip mall, you know, the interesting thing about Amazon, whether you like it or not, is the farm kits and what we're talking about are the strip malls of the future. Basically, like you say, we make an ag village, and you can go there and you can. One of the farm kits would be glad to get all your packages and also have your meal ready, right? You know, have a fresh meal ready or whatever. So it's about building the infrastructure to make all this happen. And that's why, you know, when you first told me where you fit in this and what you're talking, if we can convey that to you know, to others, that you build it the right way, it's not hard. If you're trying,
I will tell everybody that. This is wonderful. I love it.
So I mean, I don't know, you know, there's like dozens of other, you know, things I can show you there. Here, I guess here's one that's I'm going to show you that's because it's commercial and it's important because healthcare is a big deal. So this is a 5-acre project, and 2 surgeons hired us to do this because they were fed up with, you know, being in a 4-story office building and all this other stuff. So this is a surgery center. This is
my gosh, it's just 5 acres. You packed all of that on 5 acres?
Yeah. And so when you go to have surgery, you walk in and the reception desk is in a greenhouse, and they start feeding you from the minute you sign up. And then these are the surgery centers, and then the farm kit buildings. There's 2 farm kit buildings here, and the doctors, when we were working through how to build this, they're like, we need to get everybody ready for surgery. So we need to feed them really, really well. Precision nutrition, figure out what they want, and we'll grow it for them. And they'll come here, you know, every other day for the 2 weeks before their surgery and to get really healthy. And then we cut on them. Then we do the surgery.
Well, but you know what? It's going to help them heal so much faster, right?
Exactly.
And then they just need like energy medicine and sound machines and things like that for me.
No, that's totally true. Totally true. And then this is commercial down here. So this is a gym and some other stuff. I mean, this even has RV spots in it so that you can bring your RV and your spouse can have surgery and you can park there for a couple of days while they're, and then it has recuperative cabins. There's a trail, and you could basically go and you recuperate. And this is less expensive than building a hospital building.
Really?
Way less expensive. Way less.
So how much does something like that cost on 5 acres for all of that compared to building a high rise with?
Oh yeah, well, a high rise, we know because we're working with several big hospital systems now that are going, wow, maybe we should reconsider. So if you build a big medical office building, it's $40 million. And this, we think, is probably in the range of 8 to 10. And you get the same thing. You have full-on surgery. I mean, it's just because they've been doing what they've been doing. So like Paul and I, when we were designing the actual surgery suites, we looked up how they do surgery suites. They have mobile ones, right? That are like on a trailer. And they're, you know, we just took all of that information. It's not on a trailer, but it's like this really nice, tight, compact, you know, surgery suite with a operating room on one end and a recovery room on the other end, and it's 1/10 of the price of building a building.
Wow, it's like just a completely different paradigm shift of how medicine and food and living could all be connected. So cool.
I mean, like, the nursing staff lives in the 2 farm kits that are there. There's always somebody on site for any patients that are resident, you know, that are staying there for recovery, all that kind of stuff. And to have like basically the highest quality nutritional foods and supplements and herbs and everything else available to patients right there. Like this is, there's a whole untapped, I think a pretty large untapped sort of medical nutritional medicine around like really live verdant food that's you just go pick it, you eat it, and it's amazing, and it's also really good for you, and it's the way to reset your your biology so that you can heal faster and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of studies that are showing that's the case. And so that's part of what the goal.
So I'm just going to show her the studies.
Yeah,
show her the
me.
study.
So I'm going to show the studies. So there's two really, really good books to read if you want, and we know both of them and the authors or whatever. In fact, tomorrow we're on the folk. So Blue Zones and Food Fix. So this is written by a guy from the Cleveland Clinic, Mark Hyman, and he's on PBS all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
And basically, it's interesting because he wrote a book about the reason for Agriburbia, right? Like, right. Like he basically said, this is why you need it. And it's not just shortening the supply chains and freshness or whatever. It's also about working together and the, the community of doing it, producing together. And then the Blue Zones is a National Geographic. This guy, he studied all the places on the planet where people live to 100 and tried to figure out why, what they had in common. And it's food and working together. And so literally, these are the two reasons that you do Agriburbia. And they both looked at us and go, oh my gosh, you know how to do it. You know how to do it.
Well,
and we're like,
what's amazing about that is just that, especially with the pandemic, people are so isolated. We're realizing, and even the Global Wellness Institute said that for the past 100 years, we've been building homes that are making us isolated and sick.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we drive into a home, the garage door is our front door. We stay inside. Everything we have is inside. We never go outside. We can live in a neighborhood for 10 years and not know any of our neighbors, and so
it's amazing, isn't it?
And we used to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay.
We're all going to get all excited now. Sorry. Well, and the answer, the reason in the last 100 years is that it's zoning. We zoned ourselves away from food. Agriculture is considered industrial use, and so like nobody wants a tractor waking them up at 5 a.m. And so and it's that separation has impaired our health. It's impaired our community. It's impaired all sorts of things about being human that have made that complicated. I tell this story all the time. I come from a farming family in North Dakota, and when I go visit my grandparents, they had a little tiny salt box of a house on a thin lot in basically a little subdivision of Mandan, North Dakota. But the one plot next to it, which was another house lot, they bought and farmed it. And then the rest of the blocks, all houses. The other side of the block, the street, all houses, but they farmed it. And it was because they're used to. They came from an era where feeding themselves was normal, and we're not. We're so far out of that.
We just think everybody's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
So here's a piece of the shtick that's really important that I tell the developers when I'm lecturing around the country, which is just what Paul said. Producing something together creates community. Recreating together, not so much, right? Like it's great that they put a pool in or a golf course or whatever, and you can go and you meet them. But when you produce something together, you depend on each other. And you have to be doing what you're going to do tomorrow on Saturday so that I'm ready for, I can fix the food later this week or do whatever. And there's this interdependence and pride of ownership together that actually creates the community. I mean, it's like if you go to the small towns like Paul was talking about, the farmers all meet for coffee and they all talk about, my tractor's broken and this and that. And at the end of the conversation, I mean, I don't know how many of these I sat in my life. At the end of the coffee, at 6 o'clock in the morning, they always say, well, I guess your daughter's getting married next week. What would she like for a present? I mean, it's just like, it's not this separate idea. Like it's all life together. And we need you, we need each other for all kinds of reasons. So anyway,
that's wonderful.
I know you're really busy, so I don't want to extend our stay, but
I can still talk if you can still talk, but I'm so excited about what you're doing. I remember talking to the developer of Fox Point Farms in Encinitas, that's near me. What's his name? From Nolan Communities? I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he had told me, he said, the idea of everybody wants an organic farm, they don't really realize what a commercial organic farm looks like. It's not what we think that it's going to look like on our, like you said, with a nice red tractor and the cute little rows of all the different lettuce and stuff that you can just go pick. And so he says, what everybody wants is that picturesque, farm to table food and on this beautiful farm, but that's just not sustainable because you can't who's going to support that? Who's going to be the customer? So he's like, the Agrihood is just the perfect way to bring that farm in, have a restaurant that, you know, is the consumer for the food, and have all the CSA boxes and the whole community support that farm, and then get education on why it's so important, and then have some green space and be able to connect to nature and have edible walking trails. And it doesn't have to be in a rural community. It can be like Fox Point Farms is a mile from the beach.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Were you able to look at the link that I sent about our condo project?
No, I'm so sorry. I need
no,
to look
no,
it.
but
Tell
you
me
should
about
go get it. So we did it. We built a farm on the third story of a condo project. This is just to your point. Like, it's not about size. It's about quality and craftsmanship. So we built a farm, and it's next to the Zero Edge pool, right? And it's the cool. We get 2,000 pounds a year off it, and we have one of our people maintains it. We call her the farm ambassador. Everybody in the building loves her. We have meetings. We have a chef when we have a harvest. It's tiny, but it trains everybody. When we had one guy tell us in one of the meetings, like it's going to happen on the 20th of March this year. And we have an opening meeting, and everybody tells us what they want to grow. And it's like, 40 times as much as possible, but we take everybody's input or whatever. One guy walked by and he said, "I'm sure you know this. My wife and I, my wife is co-owner of the firm, and she's the green thumb. Paul and I glue all the pipe and do all the drawing. Everything that I was showing you is out of Paul's hand. He's like,
wow,
the most brilliant graphic and industrial designer there is. But anyway, so this guy walked by and he goes, I know you know this," talking to my wife and I. "There's not very much food out there." And we were like, and he could tell that he was making us squeamish. And he goes, I'm making a point. There doesn't need to be. And we said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Just walking by the farm for us is worth living in this building. Even if we never got to eat a single scrap off it, just walking by it every day." We're like, how much more can you ask for, right? Like it's an immersion thing, right? So that's what your guy was telling you. Like, if you create the infrastructure so people have to go through it and walk through it and experience it, it becomes part of their lives.
Yeah, well, and he had said he lives in a condo and he never sees his neighbor unless he's working on his bike with the garage door open and someone happens to drive in and they're like, "Hey." But he's like, this isn't going to be a neighborhood for people who want privacy. It's for people who want to connect. So he's putting the backyard and the front yard and having all these reasons why people can get together. And he thought it would just be, that the demographic would be young professionals or something. But he has, I don't know if you know the area, but Alevenhain is kind of the east part of Encinitas, where it's next to Rancho Santa Fe, and a lot of homes have 3 to 5 acres. And he said there's a lot of empty nesters that just love having a garden and they want to be connected to nature, but they don't want to upkeep that much land anymore. They want to be in that neighborhood.
I've had a couple of projects in Rancho Santa Fe, and
have you?
There's some really great lots there that would be dynamite farms and vineyard and really cool farms. Like, you could do vineyard, you could do herbal works and all sorts of things there.
They're going to be building because I live in Rancho Santa Fe and we're building a house there, but there is I don't know if it's 5 acres, maybe it's 5 acres or a little bit. I feel
they're
like
all pretty big there.
5 acres. Yeah, but this is on a major corner, and it's just been this big estate that's just been empty for a really long time. And I think they're putting in a senior center there. How amazing would your senior center be? More than a normal senior center. I wish I knew the developers of that. I'd connect you, but I don't.
We appreciate even that you've already sent a couple of emails out. I haven't had a chance to call the person in Hawaii, but I will. But
no, anybody that I know now, I know you guys, so I'll just connect you with anybody who's interested. I do know, actually, there's another agent in Florida, Arden. Do you know about Arden?
Does
that have a farm? Yeah. So she's like, she wants to go to Arden and visit Arden, and she just she's in, I don't know, maybe she's in Fort Lauderdale or something, but there's several of my members are from Florida, and they want to just connect to all these neighborhoods, and they're networking all the time. So I'm sure there's just once people see that this is actually an option for them, who doesn't want to live in a neighborhood like this? Developers have to get on. Like, why are they not seeing? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can imagine, like in 2009, when I stood up to get the first one approved in front of the city council, I got laughed out of the room. Like literally, I mean, you can see I'm not a shrinking violet, but I got laughed out of the room, and I had to go out, went to the men's room, composed myself. I came back. We kept talking about it. It eventually passed with only one no vote. The rest of the city council passed it, but it was such a foreign. I mean, back then the idea was even, well, that's ridiculous. You go to King Soopers, or you go to Kroger, or you go. I mean, that's where you get your food, and that's the problem. Like literally, that's the problem. Is people think the food comes from the store rather than ground. And it's like, wow. So
we're I just read that book Super Gut, and he thinks that so much of the disease, like the doctors are giving the symptoms a name and calling it a disease, but it's really just the name for the symptoms. The disease is bacterial overgrowth and things that we're getting from having food that has so much preservatives in it and antibiotics and all these things that are affecting our gut. And so if we can just get back to eating good food, finding ways to de-stress and being around nature, it's good.
So we think that if we could get enough Agriburbia, Agrihoods in place, we could take 30% out of the medical GDP. 30% of the medical GDP in the country is lifestyle disease, mostly related to food, right? And so literally it is a strategic idea for national security in some ways. We also do a bunch of things that are not, that are more ethereal. We actually do a thing called the community food fraction. So we actually go for cities and towns as part of their comprehensive planning. And we actually calculate how much food they need and how much food they currently grow inside the same boundary. And then if their food fraction, like it sets up a goal for their comprehensive plan to grow 50% of the calories or 35 or whatever, we help them go through that. And then once the town or the city has a plan to have 35% of its calories come from within its own borders, they start incentivizing developers to do it. They start figuring out, and they start doing stuff on roofs. And
I think that's what Christina wants to talk to you about in Hawaii, because her podcast is about connecting with the state and finding ways to have Hawaii be more sustainable, because they import a lot of their food.
Where in
we did it. She's gonna die when I show her. We did a food fraction.
We did it Oahu. Yeah, we did Oahu. So
she's going to be excited about that.
Less than 6%. Yeah, less than 6%.
I thought it was
the food that's consumed in Hawaii is from Hawaii, and you can grow anything you want.
Yeah, I thought it was less than that. What it turned out revealing was there was so much. There was so much that was imported by overseas, just because of the naval base there and the military outposts and stuff like that. So they're bringing stuff on those ships also.
Yeah, but think how fertile Hawaii is, and it has the perfect year-round weather. You could probably just grow anything.
Yeah, you can grow anything you want.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I'll call her. I just didn't have a chance this week, but I'll call her.
Yeah, no, that's great. So how can I, besides just kind of spreading the word with what you do, how can I help you further? I mean, you're wanting to connect with developers and people who are interested in building.
And brokers that have an interest in spreading, like I think there's part of the thing that we were talking about. We're way around when we first started, it was just so abstract, nobody could get there. Now everybody realizes, and COVID, kind of accelerated the whole thing. But the idea of documenting that there is a market for this. I mean, if I could have canned your reaction to the first thing I showed you today, and you go, "Oh my gosh, can you build one of those in San Diego? We need one tomorrow." They would sell out tomorrow at a premium. Right? Like everybody knows that. It's a gut feel. You just look at it and you go, oh my gosh, we need to do that.
Yeah.
But if we can figure out how, and that's why I say through a podcast or through an article or something like that, or at least just get it started, and also word of mouth. I mean, we have never paid for advertising And we,
well, you don't need
know,
to with a
we're
product
small
like that. I mean,
and mighty, but
pretty,
we just, yeah. And then, like I say, the other thing that I can do vice versa, back is to tell when I tell people that I'm, is to tell them about you and say, hey,
yeah,
listen, if you don't think this is for real now, this person is concentrating on it, right? Like
yeah,
she's trying to figure out how to make it go. And she knows the backlog is there for people that are interested or whatever. So, I mean, I think it can be a bi-directional thing for sure to help,
yeah.
so that you can get your podcast. I mean, I have a couple of people to send to you already.
Okay, that's awesome. I mean, and I think I told you that I have magazines, right? I have a wellness lifestyle magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
One's
Well,
called
like you
Wellness
say,
Real Estate. Yeah, and one's called Healthy Home. And they're the same
Oh, wow.
magazine, but with two covers. And I share it with real estate agents and healthy home professionals as a way to educate their communities about what's happening in wellness real estate and just how to create a healthier home. Because not everybody will be able to live in communities like this, but everybody deserves to live in a healthy home. So who should educate them? Well, I think all these healthy home pros are individually trying to educate people, but realtors are the ones that are in people's homes all the time. They're the ones giving referrals and connecting them with people. So they're kind of the key person. And I do think, for the past couple of years, my messaging has been a little, at first I thought, it had to be like someone who wants to be a wellness agent or somebody who wants to differentiate themselves. And now I'm realizing that, wellness is for everyone who doesn't want to live healthy. And if you want to just be a modern agent that is forward thinking, you should at least say that you're a wellness focused agent and connect with healthy home professionals and have them in your network. So you don't have to be the expert on healthy home, but you should at least know some healthy home professionals that you can connect people with.
Oh yeah.
And that opens it up to kind of every agent. They should really be saying things and having some education around helping people who are health conscious consumers. And that's the majority of people now. So yeah. I love it.
Great saving the world, isn't it?
I know. Well, what's great is that I do like to feature a community every month. And so with your list of neighborhoods that you've helped, I'd love to have that list and maybe be connected to some of the people who run it so I can interview them. And I just want to share the story of each community. And I know that they're all based on the same foundational principles, but each community is different because it's in a different location. And so I'd love to just learn about them and share pictures, and it's going to grow. Remember how organic started really slowly and people were like, who's going to pay $1 more for organic? And now everything's organic.
Yeah, I think we've also gotten through a lot. I think we've also been in the last 10 years through a phase of this sort of a teething era of living close to food, where there are a lot of developers that we worked with that are like, can't we just do a little community garden that sits off to the side in the parking lot or something like that? And those just rarely do well. They rarely do well because they're totally dependent on a volunteer program or a residential program, whoever wants it or whatever. There's no real like economic framework around it or any other infrastructure framework around it in order to support it. And so I don't know, it just seems like in the last 10 years we've had there's those projects that just aren't really surviving, and they it's sort of put a little shadow over the whole idea for a little bit. But then when you really look at it as a wholly planned community, as a resource for everybody that's living there, whether or not they choose to participate, and that it becomes a piece of infrastructure where food is the thing that it just shows up on your doorstep like water comes out of your faucet, right? Like it's not something you have to go shopping for every day. It's abundant. It's paradise, right? It's where it's paradise.
I talked to an agent and she said, green homes have been around for a really long time, and they haven't really, as an agent, when I became an NAR green designee, I kind of looked around. I'm in Southern California. I thought everybody should be a green agent. It's kind of, we're known as being really healthy down here.
Right.
We've got many. And I even got into some Facebook groups and said, who are the green agents? And people were like, you mean new? Or I'm wearing a green shirt. Like they didn't know what it was. And, and then they said, there were some agents who are like, people don't care. It's just another designation that nobody cares about. And so I was talking to this agent and she said, people do care. They're already doing things to recycle and stuff. But I think the reason why green hasn't really taken off is because it's about something outside of yourself. And innately, we're all pretty selfish. So wellness, on the other hand, is a personal thing. It's about me. It's about my family. How can I be well? And when you are incorporating that, connection to nature, eating good food is helping you personally, not just the planet, but then realizing that, when you do the right things for yourself, you're doing the right things for the community, you're doing the right things for the planet, and we're all connected. And that's why wellness is going to take off more than green.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah. No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think it's it's if you. I can't reiterate this enough, and this is, I think Paul was trying to allude to this as well, about it has to be very well thought out, very well planned. Like, we don't just hope that the water comes to the subdivision and maybe the pipe is the right size. They spend unbelievable amount of money engineering it and all that to make sure that all those things work for the people that live there. And that's what we do for food, right?
Wow.
We make sure that it's really a part of the infrastructure that's there or whatever, and then it works, and then it's really good.
Well, and you're making it easy because people want what's easy too. So, like, Paul said that the community garden doesn't work that well because you just need a lot of motivated people who really want to garden, right?
All of
and so
all of the ones that worked out that are really great and still thriving are all occupied by Asians.
Because they love to garden.
It's part of their culture, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's more recently part of their culture compared to how the United States is shaped. I can say that because I was married to a Korean woman for a long time. So I'm not racist. I know how this works. But it's true. And when you don't have that population, Hispanics also.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that
or anybody. I mean, it's just like the whole green and wellness thing. There's a lot of people that would do things, make the extra effort to do things that are good for the planet, or make the extra effort. But the majority of people want what's easy and what's convenient. So you're making good for you, super convenient and awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
What
have you guys? Did you see the documentary Kiss the Ground?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's by Woody Harrelson is the person who speaks on it. But what I thought was pretty amazing is when you're up and you're seeing the NASA screens where it shows the CO2 levels for when you're gardening, that basically when it's hard, like when it's tilling time, that's when there's lots of CO2 in the air. But when it's when things are growing, the CO2 gets sequestered back into the ground. And they just said if more farmers could be regeneratively farming and not monocropping and not tilling, we could reduce, he said, you could reduce the carbon in the atmosphere and we could get to a cool down instead of a heating situation in just, like 20 years or something. So you're doing a wonderful thing for the environment also, not just helping people. That's wonderful.
At the same time.
So
there's a thing called, if you want to, you can look it up, whatever, but there's a thing called the food, energy, water nexus. And all the scientists in the world have called this, because they're all three are connected, food, energy, and water. And so, like, literally our solution tries to address food, energy, and water. And it's for all those purposes. There's it's come to a point on the planet where the fixes aren't one-off, right? You can't just go, I'm going to fix this one thing, because they're all interconnected. So,
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your time. I know we went over, but I so appreciate it. I'll edit this a little bit, but I'll make it a podcast and I'll also put it in our community. I'd love for you to, if you want to just join our free community, you can, because then people can reach out to you if they want. I'll send you the link. And if people want to get connected with you, they just go to agriburbia.com, right?
Mm-hmm. And we're still small enough where the info goes actually to my email box.
Yay, me too.
Right?
Right?
Well, we don't want to be huge. We want to be really good. And so there's about 8 of us that are all partners across the whole country that started it together, basically. So.
Yeah. Well, you're doing good work. Thank you. You're changing the world for the better. And I think once more and more people see what you're doing, it's just so much better than how we live right now. And that medical model is just praise. Think about the wellness facility now, and it's even the wellness facility now is still pretty cool, but like compared to what you just showed me, that's like beyond cool. So amazing.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to save the world. And we get to meet people like you. It's totally fun.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, such a pleasure. Well, thank you so much. And I will we'll write a feature article about you, and I'll just reach out through email, and maybe you can send me some of those pictures and I'll send you
whatever
all the links.
Gotcha.
Yeah, whatever. Even if you have a notion of what, then I can see if we have something like that or whatever. Email, call me anytime or whatever, but email works really well. I'm an email guy, so just I get up in the morning and I can whip off stuff back to you if you need it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Quint. Thank you, Paul.
You bet.
Have a great
You're
day.
welcome.
All right.
Great to
Okay,
meet you.
All right.
Right.
Great to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something new that will inspire you to think about your branding and how you can market yourself a little differently. If you enjoyed this episode, then you're going to love what I have for you, because you don't need to wait to go get extra certifications or to grow and expand your network to get started attracting those new leads right now. You can simply begin by talking about wellness real estate trends and what you've learned on this podcast with others. I mean, this is pretty interesting stuff that no one has heard about, and I have all the tools that can make it even easier for you. Wellness Real Estate Magazine is a brand new wellness lifestyle magazine, and it's the only magazine that brings health and home together. We educate readers on industry trends and how to create a healthier home environment, written by industry experts around the country. And we have 3 covers to choose from: Wellness RE, Healthy Home, and Wellness at Home, so you can easily find one that aligns with your unique brand and messaging. These magazines are the perfect done-for-you tools that help you not only stay top of mind, but they educate and engage your audience, which positions you as an industry expert. Differentiate yourself and grow your brand the easy way. Learn more at healthyhomemedia.com.